one county that's opted out.
Mhm.
The problem is I see it, when you say ease out, and if it changes hands, you don't renew, you're gonna have a tremendous knock on property values, because people take a purchase price, into consideration if it's a Williamson Act contract. So it's not like, you're gonna scrap.
You would think so, but there's more variables involved, and when you do get a copy of that Ag Commission report,
Yeah, but
take a look at acreage. There really isn't that many acres in the program as compared to how many acres we have in the county of farmers producing. And those farmers that are not in the program have to compete with the ones that are for the price of hay they get, et cetera, et cetera.
trust me, it's a big consideration if somebody's looking at a $5 million ranch, if it's gonna stay in Williamson Act or not. And it quickly will become a $3 million ranch if the guy's gonna get taxed.
And again, we're throwing around some large numbers here. The average savings for Williamson Act contract right now is about $2.50 an acre. So that's that's the average. But we ought to fine tune that, for the benefit of the board when they make their decisions in the future. All right?
Okay, thank you, Ken. Lana, do you have a question?
Does the Agriculture Act have any bearing on the Williamson Act?
Agriculture what?
The Agriculture Act that's run by the president.
I don't know what the Agriculture Act is.
He tells you if you can have any water, any land, if you can have kids working on your property or not. That's the Agriculture Act.
I mean,
They control all the land.
I think there's probably more than one act involved in what you're saying. I don't know. Any other questions? Okay, if not, staff has direction, and that's all we have there, is direction of staff. Okay, we'll move on to item 8, County Administrative Officer information to the board.
Members, the federal shutdown has not had any direct effect on county operations at the current time, but there is significant potential. It goes on long enough, and I've asked Ms. Brawley, Ms. Carmel, and Bryce to talk a little bit about those issues for the board, just to kind of give you a heads up. Is that why you're here, or you're not?
I was unaware, but I'd be happy to stand with my partner in support, yeah.
I didn't want to leave you out.
Thanks. Touching.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Melody Brawley, Director of Health and Social Services.
And Maria Carla Bryce, Director of Children's Services, which includes Child and Family Services and Child Support Services as 2 standalone agencies.
So Maria's here because the social services budget is the one taking the largest impact in the federal shutdown. And she has a significant portion of that budget. So I just had some notes here before they recessed. And without a continuing resolution, they did agree to fund Medicaid, SNAP, which is the food stamp program, the 4E portion of the foster care payments, which is a significant portion of our assistance here in the county. Child support was funded, and so were SSI payments. However, the continuing resolution, with the failure to pass it, affects TANF grants, which is our CalWorks program, Social Services block grant, and the Community Services block grant, which we get funds to run some of our operations, Child Welfare Services, which is the admin and Maria's program, and the Older American Act programs that are not funded, so that's our Adult Protective Services. Medicaid pretty much takes care of IHSS, but there are some issues, there might be some issues there. There are also some other little federal pots throughout HSS. We did EPSDT for mental health services. There's a little bit in public health, but it's not significant. And for EPSDT, what will happen is it will just mean some delayed payments, so we're okay there. The impact is going to be to Social Services Fund 120 and 121, which would be Social Services Admin and Social Services Assistance. We just heard from CDSS this morning that the State Department of Social Services has sufficient funding through October, and they're presently reviewing the possible availability of state general funds. I wouldn't bet on that one, but they're looking at it. Just locally, we spend average a month $483,000 for social services admin, and $570,000 for the assistance. That's our average. But that also includes the foster care. We didn't separate that out, but we do know that CalWorks payments are significantly less than the foster care, group home, all those payments that we're making. The state is permitting us to use carryover funds. Well, the states are permitted to use carryover funds, so that's what the state's proposing to fund us with. And as I say, this letter from Department of Social Services this morning says they have enough to get us through October, and then they're looking at general fund after that. Yvonne looked at our funds, and she estimates that we'll probably have enough to get us through the end of November, possibly mid-December, but we'll pretty much exhaust all of our social services funds by that time.
Question.
All those scenarios are moved though, if the federal government all of a sudden reboots and comes back up and
Yes.
Correct.
then we need to plan for the contingency or inevitability that they not.
Yep, doomsday scenario.
And that's correct. From the child welfare perspective, this pot of money that's impacted by the federal shutdown is literally what we use for the operations, for the salaries and benefits of the majority of our staff. So it really is a matter of can doors stay open or not. Foster care payments will continue for those children in placement, and I'm very happy to see that.
If there's anyone there to
If there's anyone
authorize.
there to authorize, and that's true in your shop. But it really is a matter of doors opening or shut. So I can't stress that enough from the child welfare perspective. It is a big ticket item that needs to be on the radar.
Between us, we probably have about 65 staff who could potentially be impacted. There's, of
Including
course,
the schools.
there's some Medicaid and SNAP funding that will help keep some caseworkers around, and it's choosing who those caseworkers might be. Same for social workers. So
Okay, any more questions?
One question. If we were to, either the state or the local resources were to fund to keep those doors open and they eventually restart, would those monies be repaid back or are they lost forever?
typically, they are those periods are funded, so that you could do a retroactive claim. But
Well, the
I
reason
don't know
why I
if I
asked
could
that
guarantee
question
that
is
for
I
you.
did read in the news where they passed a bill where they supposedly going to pay the furloughed employees, but contractors and others who have had business with them, those particular operations are basically out of luck. And so that's why they are shut down and not continuing to do any work on the premise that they would be. And we found that when the state budget was being held hostage with PSA 2, and we saw the collapse of our nutrition service programs, and the county stepped in and bridged and provided funding for 1 month. It was like about $30,000. And the premise was that when they got up and started and running again, that we'd be able to reclaim those and pay for it because the services were delivered despite the fact that the higher-ups weren't able to make it work right. And when push came to shove, we were basically left holding the bag, and so we ate like $30,000 worth of cost. The good news is the people got the service that were dependent upon it, but the bureaucracy worked in such a way that we weren't losing out. And so my concern is that we don't put ourselves, in that kind of a bind on a big ticket item, but at the same time, we have to look at ways to take care of those who are dependent upon things being done right.
Okay.
So if this thing goes on long enough, then we'll keep you updated as we go through the next several weeks here. You could be looking at furloughing a whole bunch of employees. You could be looking at stopping, TANF grants, which probably then shifts the cost of general assistance. I mean, there's some really significant issues. Now, I guess if there is a good news, it's not just us. It's every county in California, and probably every county in the nation that following similar scenarios on different schedules. But it is a very, very significant issue.
Thank you, guys. Do you have anything else, Marty?
No, thank you.
I could give you an update on the Affordable Care Act if you're interested, or not.
Go right up if you want to.
We were gonna talk about that.
The Affordable Care Act was implemented October 1st, last week. There were some glitches, pretty much as we expected, because their system was on a timeline, their whole process was on a timeline that was very tight, and they missed a few deadlines. But all in all, it took off. The big issues on the first day, logins weren't issued to county timely, so we couldn't get into the system. The Cover California Call Center had several training issues, misrouted calls. The CalHERS system, their system that is available to them just as we use them for, was unstable. It was up and down for the first few days. And then CalHERS, they set it up to work in Chrome, the internet operating system for their system is Chrome rather than Internet Explorer, so most counties, in fact, I believe just all but about 2 are using Internet Explorer, so there were several glitches there that had to be taken care of. Counties had to scramble to make sure that they could use it. Our systems are looking at the ability to put Chrome into our system, so we're waiting to hear on that. On October 3rd, Internet Explorer 8 and the local login issues were fairly well resolved. The county received its first and only to date inquiry about an exchange product, an insurance product rather than Medi-Cal. And we received word that the long-awaited federal hub was working as planned, which was kind of a miracle. The federal hub is the one counties have been asking for years and were denied. Covered California was granted that opportunity. So they have immediate access to verify your income tax information, your current wages. All that information comes in through a hub that CalHERS has access to. We have access, as long as we can get into CalHERS, we can get that same information for people who are applying for Medi-Cal or an exchange product. We can't do it for SNAP or CalWORKS. Covered California reported receiving 7,824 calls and transferring 1,550 to counties, about 2%. There were still several trainings, Covered California staff trainings issues to be addressed. Misrouted calls, misinformation, eligibility errors. Covered California provided us with Magi Medi-Cal activity report, but there were no column headers, so we couldn't tell what the report meant. We could only see that it had a lot of information on it. On October 4th, the California Welfare Directors Association took exception with Covered California's failure to address their staff training issues, because they continued to tell people, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to apply for Medi-Cal. Well, that's not something to be sorry about. That's just a fact. But basically, the overall situation has been improving, and they are working to get their staff trained and providing with scripts so they know what to say and what not to say. Counties with paper applications were offered by the exchange the opportunity to just mail in those paper applications, and they would have their staff input that information into CalHERS. And all those counties opted to do the input themselves, just so we could be better, more familiar with the CalHERS system. So we thought that was a great way to do it. And counties are awaiting the first of the promised daily reports that which list the additional information and missing verifications that that clients are supposed to provide. We haven't had that yet. We're a week into it today, but it's been promised to us within 3 days, so we'll see. Unfortunately, for every day that goes by, that's a list of work that is on us to get, and we're falling behind. On the other, kind of on the admin side, Department of Healthcare Services has hired former California Welfare Director Assistant or Analyst Anastasia Dodson to be the manager in charge of the county and Covered California relationships, so that's a good thing. Anastasia worked real hard for counties when she was with Welfare Directors Association, and she's right there at Toby Douglas's side explaining why counties need something, rather than having the Covered California folks explain counties don't need something. So this has been really, that's been a really great step for us. Interim daily calls are hosted and facilitated by the Welfare Directors Association staff. They're attended by counties, Department of Healthcare Services staff, Department of Social Services staff, Covered California staff, and a whole variety of other people. The daily calls are to talk about what issues came up today, what solutions were found today, just to share information across the spectrum. And the Welfare Directors Association has issued media materials, which I'll make sure you get a couple copies there. And Covered California has issued a top 50 question and answer, which I also have copies of. But it was a little hard to read because they used a lot of acronyms, which not everyone will be familiar with. But I have those too. I'll provide them for you. And I'd be happy to provide them for anybody else who's interested. All in all, it was a little like Y2K here. It was kind of a non-event, but it's moving along.
Okay, any questions for Dylan?
You see, you have one person from Lassen County?
Who called in, And it's kind of what we expected. You know, the success of the program really is going to rely on the more people into that pool, the more money there is to take care of people who have illnesses. But even the federal, state government, everyone predicted that it wasn't going to be a mad rush to get signed up the first day. And even in the first year, there'd be a lot of people who go, I'll just pay the penalty. So it's going to take a little while for it really to kick in and start moving up. But so far, locally, we've only had one call. We don't know for sure how many calls covered California may have had.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Anything else, Marty? Any questions from the public? Adjourned.
All right, now you're a veteran now.
I'll have meetings this afternoon, but I'll be around. If I can answer my refer you areas. I'm at the program.
Sure. Good things.
Can you just send us the share of next year's training and
Jesse, hang on a minute, I might have one here.
Hey, pretty well. I'll email it to you if you want. No, this is.